Hi, I'm Drew Dardis, and I'm a Masters of Music student at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. And today you are joining me in a stairwell for the wistful and mysterious melancholy Etude number 20 in B-flat minor of Furstenau's Opus number 125. I hope you enjoy. All right, now I'm going to take you upstairs and show you the 10 steps that I went through as far as how I ran through this piece multiple times with different intentions in mind to get the effect that we just captured here. So I'll take you guys upstairs and we're going to go through those 10 steps. So today we are learning the Furstenau study number 20 in B flat minor. This is a really beautiful, sonorous, melodic one. The way that I'm going to start out learning this is by singing it with the metronome on. Now, even though this opening is a piacere, which means at your own pace or at your pleasure, as you please, we are going to try to do this in time with the metronome so that we have a good idea for our rhythmic foundation, and then we're going to build on top of that and add character and nuance and push and pull as we become more familiar with the phrase. Alright, so now we've sang through it once, and we're going to take the Allegro Furioso section on its own, do it at 60 to the crotchet so that we can really gain technical mastery over these foundations. And we're going to keep our fingers as close to the keys as possible, keep our posture and our poise as balanced and light as we can. And while we're doing this technical work, we're still going to keep our mind open and imaginative and creative. Okay, so we're going to keep the metronome on 60 and just focus in on the bottom of page 1 and the top of page 2 where we have all of these forzandi. I think that it's important to keep your oral cavity resonant so that you have as much harmonics as possible in the sound. That's what's going to make it expansive and big. And then we can use a big breath while keeping our body relaxed. You have to do a certain amount of self-care even while you're practicing Allegro Furioso passages. Don't let yourself get carried away with the tension and the anger that might be rising up with this piece, but really try to find the imagination and the creativity and the liberty while you're doing this more technical work. So keeping our fingers on the keys and trying to bring out these forzandi. So line 7. Great, so now we get to put this into context. We're going to take it in 1 from the top of the Allegro Furioso, so I'm going to put the dotted minim on 30, and we're going to try to keep it as flowing and moving forward as possible, but still keeping in mind what we were doing with the work on the forzandi before. Alright, I think that now is a good time to talk about how when you're learning a piece, you're practicing it, you're building these neural pathways, this is when you're building your experience with the piece, and that's the most important part of your flute playing, your flute craft, is the experience that you have while you're playing it, because you want to have a fun and imaginative experience. It should bring you back to a childlike sense of wonder, and that's what you ultimately want to give to your audience with music. So for this 5th repetition, I'm not going to use a metronome, and I'm just going to follow the flow instinctively and intuitively, but slowly and carefully and tactfully. I think of this as my tortoise and the hare exercise, where I am, like the tortoise, playing slowly and tactfully, but like the hare, I am open and imaginative, and I'm keeping that intensity and fire and support going the whole time. So you have 2 different things happening at the same time, and you're trying to make it as immersive and fun as possible, because that's what music is all about, right? Okay, so now I think it's important to focus on the ending. So for our 6th repetition, we're just going to focus in on this sequencing that takes us into the recapitulation at the end. So if you look at the 4th line on the 2nd page, the 3rd measure, we start in G flat minor, and we're going to follow that sonority as it rises up chromatically to the G in E flat major, to the A flat in A flat minor, to the A natural in the F7 chord that we're building in that measure, and then it becomes a B flat in the chromatic scale and rips into the B flat of B flat minor. That is our key of recapitulation. So we're going to try to follow that sonority and run this a couple times so that we really get it in our fingers, and then we don't have to rely on the page when we are coming back to the recapitulation and when we're playing this piece through for the last time. So I'm just trying to practice it a few different ways, get a different feel for it. Alright, now I really want to explore the characters of this opening and the ending and put them together. So let's put the beginning and the recapitulation at the end together, put the metronome on crotchet equals 60. And this is just going to give us a solid pulse that we can play around with. But ultimately, what I want to do with this 7th repetition is find more about the character and power of B flat minor and what we're going to do with it when we ultimately perform this piece. So now we're going to do a little bit of what I like to call patchwork for our 8th step. We're going to run from the halfway point to the end and from the beginning to the halfway point. We did some of this when we were working on the Allegro Furioso section because that's kind of the 25% point to the 75% point. But now we're going to do the other part so we can work on the transition from the Allegro into the a piacere and vice versa. So while you're doing this, remember to keep a comfortable tempo, relaxed, have fun with it, and don't allow yourself to ingrain any bad habits into this. You're having fun, you want to create a fairy tale and an immersive experience. right, so for our 9th rotation, what I'm going to do is focus on the articulation. We already have a good grasp of the piece. What I want to do now is focus on the contact between the tip of my tongue and the wet part of the inside of my lips. This is what is going to give us a really refined and pearly sound. And yes, as flute players, we're going to use lots of different types of articulation, and I want to bring lots of different variations of articulation to this piece. We use tu and do and ku and hu, and there's so many things that us flute players do, but what I'm going to do right now is provide a sense of uniformity by using the French articulation to have a clear sense of when the note starts, where I am in the rhythm, in the pulse, and it is going to slow my brain down. We're going to have to take some of the more easier passages for our fingers down in tempo so that we can really get this precision of the tongue and the embouchure, but it's really effective, it's really helpful. So it helps to slow you down for the sake of refinement and details, and I love that. So we're just going to do a full run through top to bottom, focusing on the articulation and using just the French articulation. All right, now the 10th and final step of our cycle is to record yourself. So it's actually really convenient that I'm recording myself for you guys. So what I would do is turn on the recording device and play it through 3 times in a row, no breaks, and I would do this despite any cracked notes or any wrong notes or any slip-ups. Like, those are all really important bits of data for you to analyze later. So you're going to want that. Get real with yourself, and we all crack notes, we all make mistakes as part of learning. So record yourself, play it 3 times, and then you're gonna have a newly found perspective at the end of this. I swear to you, you will. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you guys the opening and how I played it differently each of the 3 times. I think that it's really interesting, and I think that it gets better each time, so check this out. All right, so I'm super tired from playing that through 3 times. It's actually been 10 times and probably more according to this list that I have made. But I think that I've had a really productive practice session with this piece, and I'm gonna give it a little rest for now, let my brain rest. And then I'm gonna pick it up later and show you guys what I come up with, and we're gonna use that for the intro for this video. So stay tuned.